Hello, guys. Hello, YouTube. How's it going? Uh, so, it's time to have a discussion. And this is overall my thoughts and my opinion and sort of a review over the reconstruction of the Jade Chamber quest. It turned out to be really good. It turned out to be a very excellent quest. It does fall under the Archon quest umbrella, meaning that this was a quest that continued the main story of Genshin Impact. So before I jump into it, hit that like and subscribe button, hit that notification bell button thing. Hitting that like and subscribe button helps promote this video, therefore helping with the YouTube algorithm to get my channel out there. Hitting that notification bell makes you aware of anytime I do anything on the channel. And share this with your friends, and leave a comment down below on what your thoughts are on the Jade Chamber quest. So, it starts off kind of ambiguous. Ningguang is basically putting it out there that she plans on reconstructing the Jade Chamber. The Jade Chamber is this floating building up here in the sky, where Ningguang presides, where she conducts most of her business, and she's kind of the de facto leader of Liyue. Liyue being this whole continent down here. So, Ningguang,
that every person has somewhere to call home is naive.
and granted, let me go ahead and put this out here. I kind of got ahead of myself. For anyone who hasn't done this quest, this is a spoiler alert. What I just stated with her wanting to reconstruct the Jade Chamber, that's right in the beginning of the quest, so it's not too much of a spoiler. But before I continue, here is your spoiler alert. So, now with that being said, she plans on reconstructing the Jade Chamber. And so, she's got a lot of people from Liyue, like top merchants, other notable people. They're like, all right, we're down, we'll do it, we'll help you out. But the way Ningguang does it is that she puts something out there to entice people to want to help her. Though I thought it was kind of silly, I can't give Ningguang her credit. She is a very knowledgeable person, since she got herself in the position of being the de facto leader of Liyue.
Distinguish friend from foe, and there is clearly a limit to the Red Rope's power. That's why I loathe crowded areas.
Okay, Shinha. So, her reward for the people who help her get the materials she needs is that she will answer any question they ask her. Any question. The only catch is that it has to be at least something that you would expect her to be knowledgeable of. You can't go up to her and say, hey, what's my favorite color? Ningguang's not going to know that, because that is something that only you yourself would know. Or anybody that you hang out with, your friends. That's what she means by that. You got to at least ask her something that you would expect her to be knowledgeable of. So everyone's like, all right. And a lot of the merchants are definitely into this, because Ningguang got to her position by being
Mind be purged,
a top
world be saved.
Just a top level merchant. Because that's one thing that Liyue kind of is known for, is being a city of nothing but merchants. So everyone goes. main character runs into Shinha. I'm not going to go into too many details, but we run into Shinha. We end up continuing this story with Shinha due to us helping her out of a sticky situation. And then she decides to return the favor by aiding us in our endeavor to help Ningguang rebuild the Jade Chamber. The reason main character is getting involved is because main character, hilariously enough, wants to
friend from foe.
Let me turn this around.
Really a limit to the Red Rope's power.
There we go. Main character believes that maybe Ningguang might have information on her brother. I say brother because I chose female. So then the reason I think this is kind of silly is because why would Ningguang want to know? Why would Ningguang know where the main character's sibling is when she would have probably told us the last time we helped save the city from Osile? I would assume Ningguang would be like, hey, you helped out our city when Osile attacked. So let me help you out by giving you info on your sibling. In fact, even if Ningguang maybe came to this knowledge a year later, she would have probably pulled us aside and said, hey, I want to return the favor from you helping us save the city from Osile, so here's some info about your brother. So I will say that our main character is so blindly optimistic to find her sibling. I mean, okay. I'm just going to call it blind optimism. So we go and get some part of the materials from with Shinha's help. Shinha actually turns out to be a big help because of her history with training with the Adepti. And throughout this, Shinha's character really shines. And this is part of what makes this quest so good, is because Shinha's backstory is so fleshed out. And it's very well done. So like I said, she turns out to be really helpful due to her Adepti training. But we learn that she's very uncomfortable when people, because of the way she presents herself, the way that she's kind of distant, just like the Adepti, people just assume that she is an Adepti, when in fact she is a mortal who was trained by Adepti. And it goes into how that came to be with when she, and here's the thing. We eventually get to this village, and it turned out to be a village that was that it became abandoned over time. And we meet Yunjin, who is coincidentally going to be doing a play, an opera, in this case an opera, of a story called The Divine Damsel of Devastation. I believe that was the name of it. And in the story of the Divine Damsel of Devastation, it exaggerates, and that's the thing, how stories that are played out based on real life events, these stories that come after eventually get exaggerated, just for theatrical sake. And then this is a perfect case of it, and they do it so well. So with the Divine Damsel of Devastation, the way the story goes is that this demonic entity comes to the village and says, I'm going to pretty much destroy this village as a sacrifice. You all will be my sacrifice, but I'll offer you all well, I kind of skipped one tiny beat. The people tried to fight back, but they realized that the demonic entity was like, no, you got no chance. So he offers them a way out. Sacrifice a child to me, and I won't destroy your village. And so begrudgingly they offered up a child. But the child had the will and an exorcist weapon, which is a weapon designed to fight off demonic otherworldly entities. So she fought back and she managed to defeat the demonic entity. And when the child walked out of the cave after defeating the demonic entity, with her trump card being the exorcist knife, an adepti saw her and was amazed, so amazed by this feat that the child did, that the adepti took the child underneath her wing and flew off with her, raised her, trained her in the adepti arts, and then the girl grew into a woman who was able to become a hero, a legend. And that is the story of the divine, what is it? The divine damsel of devastation. That is the play that Yunjin's going to perform. But here's the interesting thing. When we get to this village with Shinha and Yunjin, we find a book. It turned out to be a journal of a father. And the way the journal reads, that this father and his wife turned out to be sick, and it was a terminal illness. She was going to die. And so he finds this book from the village leader. He takes the book, and it turns out to be an exorcist book on how to summon a spirit. And he's hoping that when he summons the spirit, it might be able to help him save his wife. So he summons the spirit with the book, and the spirit turns out to be a demonic entity. So the demonic entity says, your daughter that you and your wife had, she is cursed, and if you sacrifice your daughter to me, who knows? Maybe your wife, she'll get better. This is the way out I'm giving you. So the demonic entity tells him that he'll be waiting in a cave nearby. Bring me your daughter as a sacrifice, and like he said, who knows? It may save your wife from her terminal illness. He's basically saying the curse that the child bears will be what will save his wife. And turns out that daughter's name, which was noted in the journal, was Shinha. So the father's like, well, shit. My child's cursed. My wife's got a terminal illness. What am I going to do? So the distraught father, who's definitely not going to win Father of the Year award, takes his daughter to the cave and sacrifices her to the demonic being. And then part of this story gets filled in from what we learned from Cloud Retainer. Cloud Retainer being an adepti. Cloud Retainer tells us that she found Shinha in a cave, who was just in a really intense fight with the monster. And Shinha was just going on by just her willpower alone. Cloud Retainer says that she finished off the monster, but she had a feeling that Shinho was going to win that fight. Just because when she saw the monster, he was already at his wit's end because he could not defeat the child because of the willpower Shinha had. So Cloud Retainer then takes Shinha under her wing and trains her in the Adepti arts. And what the curse was that Shinha had was part of her strong willpower comes from a homicidal urge to just finish anything no matter what. She has this homicidal tendency to her willpower is tied into a homicidal urge, and that's how she wants to. When she sees an obstacle, the the most efficient way turns out to be the most homicidal way. So she bounds her soul with this red rope that you see on her right here to suppress her homicidal urges, which on the flip side suppresses some of her other emotions as well. You can still tell she has emotions when she presents herself, but you can tell that she's kind of reserved. So the way the story in the journal finishes is that when the father gets back, his wife doesn't get better. She ends up passing on, if I remember correctly. And then he couldn't live with himself anymore based on what he had just done. And he takes it upon himself to do the deed. He hangs himself on a rope, and that's that. So we continue onward with Shinha and Yunjin. We get everything that we need. And what's really cool is that on the side of Leeway, actually, it's
That's why I loathe crowded areas.
It's actually literally right here. You can see and witness the Jade Chamber being reconstructed. And that I thought was really cool, that they literally show the reconstruction of the Jade Chamber from piece to piece that we end up acquiring for Ningguang. And so another interesting story beat is that when we were talking to Cloud Retainer, she states that there is an incoming doom that is going to test Leeway on if story beats that happened a year and a half, a little over a year, where the mortals of Leeway took control, and the Adepti promised to take a step back and see if the mortals could take care of business on their own. This is the part where that new change in regime took effect. This was going to be the moment where the Adepti were going to see if the mortals could handle business on their own. Because it turns out there was an incoming disaster on its way. And we even learned this from Xiao, who was just chilling over here, saying that Ningguang knows something that she hasn't told us, which was that there was a disaster upon us, and he's hanging out over here on the other side of the mountain in case he needs to act. And then we find Kaching over here in Guyon Stone Forest. This was so funny. I'll go over there too with Kaching, and I'm like, hey Kaching, what are you doing? And she's like, oh, we're just doing a little construction project. Don't mind the giant ballistas hanging out to the side of us. This is all just a construction project. And so we're like, I'm thinking, I don't think you're telling me the whole truth. And then we see Chi-Chi over here by the docks. Unfortunately, Chi-Chi is just brutally honest because she's a very naive character, saying, "Oh, Ningguang told me to hang out here and help with um, the evacuation, but I can't get anyone to believe me, so I'm just going to hang out here and defend people when the attack happens." And so we finally get back to Ningguang and we ask her our three well, main character got to ask a question. Yoon Jin got to ask a question, and then Shinha got to ask a question. First was Yoon Jin. Yoon Jin asked her a question, which was, what would be a great place for me to perform this play, this opera? And then Ningguang's like, well, there's no other better place than right here on the Jade Chamber. In fact, I'll set it up for you too. All you have to do is bring your stuff, and I'll set up the whole performance for it. Well, the stage for the performance. Shin, main character, was about to ask her a question, and Ningguang stopped her and says, and I love that she did this. She's literally looked at main character and said, "Don't waste your question on asking me where your brother is. I don't know." And Paimon starts trying to ask how she runs a good business, and right in the middle of Paimon's questioning, Ningguang looks at her and says, "Running a good business comes with experience. You're not going to be building up experience being a traveler. But if you do need financial aid anytime in the future, I will be happy to compensate you for the things that you've already done for me to begin with." So that's probably going to come to play later on in the story. And so Shinha, who didn't really feel like she needed to ask a question, but Ningguang just offered it to her, just be polite and nice. Shinha asked, what would it take for me to fit into human society? And Ningguang gives this spiel about what you do for the people will help you integrate into the human society. And over time, you'll feel a sense of belonging. And that sense of belonging is going to be dependent on you, how you connect to the mortal realm. And you can understand that where Shinha has been trained and taught and raised by the Adepti, there's that inherent disconnect with mortals, even though she is mortal. We see that with Ganyu. Only Ganyu is a little bit better off than Shinha is, because even though Ganyu is part Adepti, she has spent a lot longer with the mortal realm, so she understands mortals better than Shinha, who is mortal, but she's never been part of mortal society, human society. So we continue on, and we finally get to the point where Beto shows up. And Beto's been helping us along the way too. But Beto just completely says, hey, everything's ready for the counterattack against the incoming disaster. And then we're like, what are you guys talking about? I've been hearing about this, but what are you guys talking about? Ningguang's like, well, you'll find out here in a second when we raise the Jade Chamber up. So they raise the Jade Chamber up into the sky, and then all of a sudden, right on cue, this giant sea monster, who I was assuming was Osayo. I thought maybe Osayo might be returning. But it turned out to be a different sea creature whose name escapes me. But it turned out to be Osayo's wife, who was dubbed the Avenger of Osayo. Ningguang says that this, even though I wanted the Jade Chamber back because I really loved the Jade Chamber, the Jade Chamber was my trap. You see, when I brought back to Jade Chamber, it was my way of enticing Osial's wife to pop up out of the sea because she knew that since Osial was defeated by the Jade Chamber a year ago, she would see the Jade Chamber and be like, it would be kind of like a trigger point. It would piss her off. She'd raise up out of the sea and try to bring down the Jade Chamber to it as a way of avenging her husband. So she raises out of the sea. We get this big, cool cinematic scene where Ningguang's summoning these sharp stones, throwing them at Osial's wife. The ballistas that Kaching built were firing. Beta was firing ballistas from her ship. We get this dramatic scene where the Traveler tries to attack Osial's wife with the dull blade. Out of all things, God, main Traveler just needs to get a new sword. And it was appropriate because as soon as she tried to strike Osial's wife with the dull blade, Osial's wife smacks her up into the cliffside of Gunyan Storm Forest. Luckily, Shinha catches us when we're falling from the sky. And then Osial's wife summons this big tidal wave. Shinha, with the power of friendship, uses her cryo powers to freeze the tidal wave. We get into this boss battle where we have to defeat Osial's wife, who turns out to have be like a 3-headed sea dragon type thing. It turned out to be a really cool boss battle because each head had its own health bar. So we defeated her. I wonder if she pops up in the boss character archive. No, it would be more sea monsters. Let's see. Archive. Let's see if she pops up. Let's see, living beings. Well, that's interesting. Looks like she doesn't pop up. That's very interesting up here. I wonder what I haven't discovered yet. So it doesn't turn out that it pops up in the living beings thing. But we defeat Osial's wife, and then the story ends pretty much with another great cinematic scene, very well artistically done cutscene that shows Yunjin's updated version of the story of the Divine Damsel of Devastation. Remember, this is about Shinha, where it does the story, Shinha's past, but then she even continues onward where the Divine Damsel of Devastation, with the help of the Traveler, defeats Osial's wife. And it was, and the music was great. You had Shinha performing. It cut back between Yunjin performing the play, then this artistically done, illustrated version of everything in the past and the present, and then the music. The music was so well done. It was a beautifully done cutscene. And the story ends with after the opera, the play, the Jade Chamber gets to stay in the sky because Ningguang didn't have to use it to slam down on Osial's wife. And that's why we're still we get to hang out at the Jade Chamber. And it was just a well done story. It was a great Archon quest. It told a really good story about Shinha and who she is and her background. It got to tell a story about how things are going on
Lion be
in present
purged,
time,
world be saved.
present time leeway. We got to finish off the story with Osial and his wife. We got to get back the Jade Chamber, and we got to show and Yujin and her connections with Leeway and what she does for the people of Leeway. It was a great story. And when I was talking to people in my chat about the story and my thoughts at that time, it told a more cohesive story. When you compare it to Archon Quest that we've had the last couple updates, even though the Inazuma Archon Quest was good, it hit the story beats that it needed to hit, and it executed them very well. There was some points that felt a little loosely tied together. Like, for example, what we were doing in Sangonomiya, with the Watatsumi Sangonomiya army, the resistance. Like that's what I'm more so pointing at, was because I felt like that could have been fleshed out better, and it could have just been a lot better. It just felt like it was there just to be there. When we know lore-wise that it played a more how do I put this? Lore-wise, it played more of a necessary part of the story due to the whole Vision Hunt decree. It just all felt like it was beautifully written. From point A to point Z. Every letter of the alphabet was present. It was all flushed out. Everything made sense. The whole coincidence between Shenhe's past and Yunjin's play, it felt like a genuine coincidence. And that's when you see that genuine coincidence, you're just once you put the dots together, you're like, oh, that makes sense. That's how it felt. It felt genuine. So, my thoughts on the reconstruction of the Jade Chamber story gets 2 thumbs up. It was a really good story. Every character had their time to shine, and every character that played a huge role in the story really felt fleshed out. So, great story. I hope you guys who have seen this enjoyed it. I hope you enjoyed my thoughts and my kind of review, not really a review. If you have any thoughts, feel free to comment down below what you thought. I'd like to hear it. So hit that like and subscribe button. Hit that notification bell. Share this with your friends. And like I said, feel free to comment down below on your thoughts on the story. Tell me what you think. Tell me what you think in my opinion. But just be respectful. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll catch you later.